Hi guys, how's it going? This is Resident of Conmen back with my second Dark Shadows video for you guys. This one is Paul Stoddard and Jason McGuire, best friends and conmen. I think the first thing to get out of the way before I do these two is this. I'm more just examining it from the series standpoint. I'm not including the audio dramas, and here's why. I don't consider the audio dramas canon. Now, if you do, hey, cool, great, awesome. I just don't. So, from the series standpoint, was Paul Stoddard and Jason McGuire from Collinsport? Nope, not not at all. Roger Collins. I'm going to quote Roger Collins. There was a man you fell in love with who wandered into town one day. His name was Paul Stoddard, and that lets me know one thing. Paul Stoddard is not from Collinsport, Maine. He is not from the local area. He's not even. I would more say that Jason McGuire and Paul Stoddard, both Paul Stoddard and Jason, are from Ireland of all places, and I think that's probably most likely where they met. Now I know that doesn't really get said in the series, but I'm also more giving my fan retrospective on this, and hey, I could be wrong. Also, we hear Jason McGuire's Irish accent, which lets me know, hey, he's not from Collinsport. I honestly think these two are more disciplined than anyone gives them credit for. Sure, they could be mean, cruel, and twisted, and they also can be very, very impatient at times. But at times, there's times Jason has more patience than what people think, which leads me to believe that they may have had military training. And most likely, Jason and Paul probably served in the IRA together. That's the Irish Republican Army, for those who don't know. I really think these two's history dates back prior to some sort of thievery. I don't think this is just simply about being two thieves who get thrown together. And here's what leads me to believe that. Jason's words, and you might say, well, Jason, you're trusting Jason. When Jason McGuire gives his word, he does keep it, for the most part. I can't knock him on that. Sure, he's a heel, but it doesn't mean that all heels lie all the time. I think that's something that gets misconceived about heels. And yes, I'm still using my wrestling terminology. Forgive me. So, my goodness. So, here's Jason McGuire. Here's Paul Stoddard, right? Jason says something that Paul, when he tried to catch up with Paul, Paul just vanished. And he seemed generally shocked by this and surprised. It lets me know that Jason never really planned to return to Collinsport initially, and he probably never did. He probably always planned to meet up with Paul and just them to do schemes together. But he could never find the guy. He said the last time he saw him was in China, and that was it. That was, I think, yeah, China. That was the last time he saw, or Shanghai or something. It was something like that. So that was the last time he saw Paul Stoddard, and he never found him again. And it lets me know when he says, I never found him again, what's that say? I kept looking for Paul Stoddard. Eventually, he obviously stops because he meets Willie Loomis, and I think he meets Willie. Do I think he meets Willie Loomis in the army? No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think more Jason McGuire and Paul Stoddard served together. I would say that Paul Stoddard was a major and that Jason McGuire was underneath him, that he was beneath his regiment. He was probably a sergeant or something. So I think these two have military ties. They have deeper ties than just being two thieves. And I think Jason's words back those up to a degree with he just, he's shocked he never found Paul again. Well, why would he never find Paul again? Why would that affect him so much if they just had a thief and apprentice relationship? I think they have way, way, way more than what people like to believe. Simply because, look, even Jason sort of knocks Paul. He's like he was just so greedy, and maybe Paul was greedy. Maybe Paul was even too greedy for Jason. It's like, hey, you're taking that much money? Come on, we don't need that much now. Leave the girl something. And maybe Paul was way more greedier than Jason, and maybe even more temperamental. Do I think Jason McGuire fully tells the truth about how more temperamental Paul is? I think Jason had a lot more patience than what Paul did. The thing of it is, though, I think even Jason's patience wore thin by near the end of his life. Here's a man who brought a local thief a person he was trying to teach thievery and apprenticeship to one Willie Loomis. Where Paul and him were a little more mature and a little more patient with each other because they had been together in battle and probably through the military, that they were willing to more learn off of one another. I think I think Jason honestly saw Willie wasn't wanting to learn nothing. Even though, here's the thing too, if Jason was really just wanting to get rid of Willie, remember when Willie shows back up after being bitten by Barnabas, and he doesn't know this obviously, he's trying to keep him around. He's trying to keep him in the house simply because he wants Willie in his life. He wants Willie as an apprentice. He doesn't want to do this job by himself. And I think this is more because Jason doesn't want to have to look over his shoulder, not just at the Collins family, but also at Willie too. It's like, hey, if you're here, I can just keep a better eye on you, honestly. Not when you're out there. I don't know where you are. Hell, I didn't know where you were. And I think it frightened Jason to a degree where not knowing where Paul was, it didn't frighten Jason. I'm going to throw a theory out here, and this could be off base. So if you disagree, please do. I don't. Let me throw something at you. Jason McGuire returns to Collinsport asking about Liz, right? Who? Keep in mind, Paul and Jason knew each other. Jason knows Paul's still alive. He he knows that Paul was married to Liz. He knows Paul's alive. So Jason, who can't find Paul, returns to the one place he's pretty sure he probably could or will show up eventually, Collinsport. I honestly think Jason McGuire drugged little Willie Loomis to Collinsport just to find his dear friend, one Paul Stoddard. I don't think Jason McGuire went up to Collinwood looking for Paul Stoddard. No, that would have been too obvious. But I figured he uses the con to Liz that, hey, Paul's dead, but I know he's dead, and I'm going to use that against you. Now, he doesn't say that directly at her like that. He lets her believe that Paul's dead, and he's blackmailing her to stay in that house. And no, really, I think he's sort of hoping the phone will ring at Colin. He picks it up one day, and it's Paul. I really think Jason McGuire came there in hopes of refinding his old friend, but not to be. He never showed. Now, did Paul Stoddard plan for Jason McGuire together? No, I just think I just think that Paul Stoddard was, gone by this point. He had made the deal with the Leviathans and disappeared. Here's Jason McGuire looking for his friend, not knowing where he's at, can't even find him. But he knows the one place he was married at and the one woman he was married to. And he goes there. Yeah, he decides to run a blackmailing scheme to get some money because he does need the money. But I think he's hopeful that Paul Stoddard will turn up in Collinsport as well. But Paul never does. Keep in mind, too, and here's why I say this. Jason could just leave Collinsport. He really could. But he doesn't. Why? Why does he still stick around? You could say it's for the family jewels and to sneak into the old house, sure. I'm not going to disagree with you there. But once again, I think him sticking around more involves Paul Stoddard as much as it does our young friend, Willie Loomis. I think he's hopeful that Paul will still turn up. I think there's more of a friendship tie than people care to admit with Paul Stoddard and Jason McGuire. And I think if we honestly dug deep enough, we'd find that friendship. These two literally were as thick as thieves. For sure. All right, guys, that's my character retrospective of Paul Stoddard and Jason McGuire's friendship and con. I've got one more video for you guys.